Let Roger give you the rundown on how we'll move forward, but if you, in addition to Roger's questions, if you would like to ask a question of the candidates, you can write it down back here and we'll get those to Roger towards the end. So, thanks again, Roger.
All right, thanks, Stephen. So I did want to point out a couple of things. So of course, back here behind me you see tweets, big tweets. So if you are so inclined and you like Twitter, you're on Twitter, you can feel free to tweet about the event as it's occurring. And the candidates have been so kind as to put their Twitter handles. So we've got the 4 candidate names and then each of their Twitter handles. So if you want to mention them on Twitter, you feel free to do so. And the way to make sure that it gets up on this board is you use the hashtag AuraD4, which is shown on the whiteboard as well. So as far as kind of the structure of this, you're free to tweet some questions on Twitter, or some of you have submitted some questions that are in the box, and those are going to, a select few of those, or perhaps all of them will be coming later, and you'll have an opportunity to ask the candidates those questions at that time. I don't want this to be overly structured. I like this to be kind of more of an informal conversation, and so I really actually don't have a very strict way that I want to do this, and so might improvise a little bit. Anybody have any questions about the format or about how this is going to go?
If and when you decide to give anyone a length of time for which to give a response in, I'm charged with being a timer if Roger ever needs one. And I'm going to use Sammy here to indicate 30 seconds, yellow, and Mama, color red.
Big trouble.
That'll be no time left. Okay? Awesome. Thanks. Sammy's 30, Mama's 0.
All right, well, why don't we start with an introduction, 1-minute introduction from each of you. Let's just go my right to your left, or my right to my left.
Howdy, my name is Louis Heron. I've lived in the district for almost 25 years now. My background is I'm a civil engineer. I graduated from Texas A&M in 1980. I had worked mainly as an environmental engineer most of that time. In school, I was a transportation engineer, took a lot of transportation classes. I took road engineering design classes, so I do know about trains and how to lay track. Background is, like I said, I've worked for the state for basically almost 35 years now. One of my functions with the state is I coordinate with a lot of city governments, state governments, and stuff of this nature. So I'm aware of how things work. I know how to get things done. And I'm always looking for options and all this. I try to save cities money all the time. But I'm a regulator, so that's a bad part of me.
Thank you, Louis.
Hello, my name is Marco Mancias. I'm also running the City Council District 4. I've lived in Austin for 15 years. And I want to make sure that this is a great city for everyone to live as well. But there's no reason why in 2014 you have kids forced to walk on busy roads like Lamar, Runberg, and Breaker because of lack of the basics of no sidewalks. And there's no reason why you have seniors taking 3 or 4 buses to their healthcare appointment because of lack of healthcare services in the district. And there's no reason why you have families who live here 20, 30, 40 years having to move out of Austin because they can't afford rent or taxes anymore. These are big issues in District 4. And that's why I'm running, because I want to be the voice and make sure that we have a seat at the table at City Hall. Thank you.
Thanks, Marco. Go for it.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Laura Presley. I'm running for District 4. My background is an engineer. I worked in the semiconductor industry here in Austin for about 17 years. I'm a small business owner. And I also am a neighborhood advocate. There are a lot of issues that we are challenged within District 4. Affordability is number 1. Transit is number 2. Well, actually, I would say it's almost equal. And then also crime. And we also have a healthcare desert here in District 4. We do not have healthcare services for our population. And if you look at, there was a clinic that was put up at Breaker and Parkfield. We don't have bus service to that clinic. We have been working I'm on the Restore Remember team to try to re-implement bus service to that clinic. We've met with Capital Metro, and there's up and down Parkfield, there's a route that was taken off. And so we are working with them to put that back on, because that's a big issue. People cannot get to the clinic, and that's some issues. Affordability is a big deal. And read my cards. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Monica, go for it.
I'm Monica Guzman. I am native Austinite, born and raised here. I've lived in Austin 47 of my almost 48 years. Anyway, my birthday's coming up in a week. I moved into the district just 6 months ago, but I do have a lifelong investment in this community. I lived in it wasn't considered a district back then, but I did live in the area back when my son attended Burnett Middle School, graduated from Lanier High School. My entire education was public education. That's very important to me, considering how high percentage we have of children in this district. And housing, safe and affordable housing, healthcare access, and I just drew a third, sorry. There is a third issue, I just drew a blank, sorry about that, pulling your hair here.
Somebody had to say that.
Yes, I did. But like I said, I do have information on cards, and I am available to speak to after this. Thank you.
Thanks, Monica. Roberto.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out this afternoon. My name is Roberto Perez, and I'm also a candidate for City Council District 4. I've been living in the North Austin Civic Association for about 5 years, and I've been working with the neighbors during that time. It just spawned on me that I wanted to work with my neighbors. That's the reason that I kind of have my slogan, putting neighbors first, because that's my priority. My civic service includes a safe place. I work with individuals who have physical and mental disabilities, to give them a voice in our community. A lot of them come back to our neighborhood. Also, I co-chair the Restore Remember, the revitalization team, that we are working to clean up our streets and make a difference. Also, I am a candidate for a doctoral degree. I've been working on my education. That's kind of been my goal. And I bring social services. I've been working in social services for the last 3 years. And that gives me a different perspective. So I can bring in my business experience, my social service experience, and making sure that I can put all of that to use in our district. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi,
Please introduce yourself.
I'm Sharon Mays. I'm running for District 4 as well. I have lived in our district for almost 10 years now. I grew up in Austin. My family has been here for, I'm going to age myself, 37 years. I'm running for District 4 representation because as a member of this community, I love my neighborhood. I've been very involved in my neighborhood. I'm on the board of the YMCA right across the street as well. I'm the president of the North Austin Community Garden. And I think in our neighborhood we have a lot of challenges and opportunities. I'm a business professional and an entrepreneur. I've got about 20 years of management experience as well as strategic problem-solving experience. And I feel that what we need to help District 4 and Austin as a whole get back on track is some really innovative problem solving. We have a lot of issues and challenges here, and I don't think that we need one solution, one-stop solutions for our district as well as for Austin.
Thank you, Sharon. And are you Katrina?
Yes, thank you. Hi, I'm Katrina Daniel. I live in the Highland neighborhood. I've lived there for more than a decade, have been active in the community. I was president of the Highland Neighborhood Association for several years, and then beyond that have served, I'm currently on the ACC Campus Advisory Committee. I'm on the Airport Boulevard Redesign Committee and am on the Central Board of Managers. So I'm looking to continue serving District 4 in this community with a formal seat at the table. Beyond that, I'm a registered nurse. I'm a trauma nurse. I became a nurse 25 years ago, and through my work with patients in the public hospital, I realized sometimes there's some systematic issues that I might be able to have a bigger impact on if I worked in public policy. So that shifted me a little bit in my career toward public policy into Austin 18 years ago. And so I've worked in the Texas legislature. I'm currently an executive in a state agency, and I have extensive experience in government with big writing budgets and public policy, and I'd like to bring that experience to Austin as well as District 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. Gregorio,
And we have 1 minute, is that right?
you have 1 minute.
Great. So hi all, my name is Gregorio Casar. A lot of y'all know me as Greg, and I'm running for District 4 to elevate the voices of the working people that make our city great and to work to represent the ordinary folks that oftentimes are ignored or forgotten at City Hall. I've had the great opportunity of working alongside neighborhood leaders, church leaders, environmental activists, unions, and bringing together a broad coalition of folks to make over 24 major policy changes at both the city and county level to directly benefit working people, to create better jobs for those who need them most, to raise wages in a city where wages are stagnating while prices are rising, to create more affordable housing and more affordable housing solutions in our city. Because our district is truly an incredible district. It's one of the last places where there's lots of affordable housing, where there's integration across racial and class lines. There's so much opportunity there, and we need to preserve that and expand that across the city. And so I am looking forward to having this conversation with you all about how we can become a truly inclusive and world-class city. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Gregorio, and the rest of you for your introductions. Let's. I heard a number of you mention affordability. So why don't we start off with that topic? What I'd like each of you to take a, let's say, 2 minutes discussing is what you see as the causes. Let's not talk about the solution yet. What are the causes of the lack of affordability in Austin? And we'll do the same order.
Well, what I see is on affordability, what's coming is we've got an influx of people who are coming from other parts of the country that have a lot of money to spend and they have no problems raising the prices. The other thing I see is on affordability, the main thing is our city council spends money like, pardon me, like a drunken sailor. They are not worried about where the money's coming from. You're hearing city council members talk about all the time, oh, it's only $5, it's only this. I don't know about y'all, but when I got my proposed tax bill, it costs me now $3 more a day to live in the city of Austin just because of taxes. And all I see is that's going up. Everything that we're doing right now is going to go up. So unless we get a fix on cost in this city, on paying for city services, paying for this, because we're getting nickeled and dimed to death, and that's causing everything to go up. Landlords got to charge more because their taxes are going up. Everybody's going to have to pay more. So I see a good portion of that is people moving in here, and the other thing is our taxes keep going up because the values keep going up, and the city keeps charging more to the maximum rate.
All right, thank you, Liz. Go for it, Marco.
You know, one of the biggest things that I see right now is that, city council has been putting a lot of money in downtown area. Everything, big business, getting subsidies, getting incentives, and you're looking at all these people moving in, people hiring people to fill these jobs. Where the council says, we're having these big companies coming in, and we're providing new jobs, but they're not jobs that equate the value of what you can do that job in order to be able to live here in an efficient manner, and that's a problem. Because you have people moving in every day, and at the same time, everything goes up, like everything else, supply and demand. We got to find ways to stop that. If we do not stop that now, then it'll be an even bigger problem. And the way to do that is basically we need to make sure that we basically supply the money all around Austin, not just focus on one area. And that's going to take 10 people to actually do that, not just one person. Then it's going to take 6 votes to pass new rules and regulations. And that's where I see the first option.
Thanks, Marco.
This is one of my favorite questions, and it's one of the biggest focus of my campaign. The number one thing why our affordability is so far out is the city council and our city has a culture of spending. I have been involved in meetings where they have said verbatim, we are rich. The city is rich. And so if you have that attitude, a lot of things come out of that. Development doesn't pay for itself here in Austin. Austin Energy just started charging developers for impact fees, for hookups, for electrical. $20 million a year we have been just writing off the books for electrical fees to developers. That's a culture. that allows that to happen. We're rich, we can let the developers have our money. We also spend millions of dollars advertising to bring people to Austin. Millions of city dollars. That drives affordability issues with our property. Our property values go up. I have a small business, and when I advertise, I get more business. Why does the city advertise and spend millions of dollars to bring more people here? I think we could take the foot off the pedal of that just a little bit and let us have more kind of organic growth instead of pushing for more and more people to be here and solve the problems that we have with density that we have today. One of the main affordability issues are utilities. How much of your utility bill is fees and how much of it is actual usage of your utility, water, electric? In District 4, it's about half. That is a big deal. Those fees pay for those utility hookups that we're waiving for developers. Those fees pay for subsidies that go to corporations like Apple. Those fees have to be, those things have to be paid for, and we're doing it. That's driving our affordability issues. Our tax rates are also too high. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
The way I see it is it's a combination of factors, as you've been hearing, but actually it starts with lack of investment in the people who live here. The state is not putting money in job training programs. Instead, they're investing in Charles Schwab. The county is not investing money in their own employees and in the people. Statesman just recently wrote them up as being dysfunctional. What are they doing? Even after 2 of the commissioners realized what's going on, they still awarded the money to Charles Schwab. When we invest money in our own community, our own people, then we can raise them up, have better education, better training, they earn more money, they can have a true living wage. When we have a living wage at the city, try to work with the community, the businesses, and try to get them to have that as well, where they're paying well-trained, well-educated employees. That brings them up, and then we can start working on the developers. Let's stop awarding them incentive packages unless they're going to make sure that they're providing true affordable housing. They've got an in lieu of fee. They pay it so they don't have to provide that. When they do provide it, they put shoe boxes. Families can't fit in shoe boxes of affordable housing. That needs to be changed. That in lieu of fee needs to be wiped out, or at least done on a case-by-case basis. It needs to come from different angles, but the bottom line, investment in the people who are already here. That's what it needs to be.
Thanks, Monica.
I think that one of the things that we also have to kind of identify or define is what is affordability. I know it's a buzzword that's been used left and right. One of the focus, at least for District 4, in my opinion, is housing. Affordability as far as housing. It's basically, it comes down to supply and demand. The more supply you have, the cheaper it's going to get. But if there's a shortage on the supply, what's going to happen? The rents are going to go up and prices are also going to go up. So there has to be a way to increase that supply as far as housing. And to existing housing, to the homeowners, this affects both the renters and the homeowners. So there has to be, especially in District 4, since we have a high number of renters, we have to keep that in mind, that it's going to affect both the housing and both housing for renters and homeowners. As far as housing, to slow the rise of the increase on the effective property tax rate, also looking at commercial, the commercial properties, how are they valued? That's one of the things that we kind of have to take a look at. And that's one of the big problems, kind of talking about subsidies and giving bigger corporations more money. That is one of the things that we should be looking at as a city. Explore property tax exemption options, such as the homestead preservation districts. You know, we have to look at different options to create affordability as it relates more home, bringing it here to what we need in District 4.
Thanks, Roberto. Sharon?
Well, I think, you're going to hear a lot of us all say kind of that fiscal responsibility is a big piece of the puzzle of why we have affordability as an issue, and really kind of addressing what affordability means to all of our populations, whether you are a new family, or maybe you are a single parent, or you are a retired person now on a fixed income, or you're someone who has 2 hourly jobs trying to make ends meet. Those groups all have different affordability needs. I think as a city, one of the things that we really need to look at is how are we addressing and supporting these different populations instead of just saying this is affordability, this is your solution, everyone figure it out. I think that when we talk about, especially in District 4, we have a high population of renters. Well, when you look at that population of renters, they're not all the same. Our average rent in Austin is about $1,150. I'm a licensed realtor, so I'll tell you that translates into about a $150,000 mortgage. So within that population of renters, we need to be saying, you know, renters kind of fall into a couple of different categories. People who want to rent forever, that's their lifestyle. People who rent because that's what they can afford to do. And then people who are renting who really should be buying. And we need to, as a city, be trying to incentivize builders for that entry-level home purchase so that we can take some of these renters and give them options to buy so that we don't have such a heavily saturated rental market. When we talk about supply and demand, that curve, we can't always affect it with price control, but we can affect it by pulling people who shouldn't be in that pool out of it. And then also really looking at our city and how we allocate money and how we allocate incentives. We absolutely need to be incentivizing our local and small businesses and investing in our local economy and investing in our local workforces so that kids coming out of high school, kids coming out of college, people trying to readjust their program have things out there to get them jobs that support a living wage.
Thanks, Sharon.
So I think, much like what's been said, affordability really goes beyond just the affordability of housing. It spans housing, wages, and other ancillary costs of living in town, transportation, utilities, that sort of thing, and your taxes, of course. So when we're thinking about the affordability of housing, I think Roberto made a very good point about demand. So when you look at District 4, that has several of the most heavily trafficked transportation corridors. We've got I-35, 183, Lamar Boulevard, Airport Boulevard. You know, if we're not looking at having more development along those, you know, more responsible development along those corridors, then it's going to affect, I think, density in areas where we may not necessarily want to see it, and creating and limitations on opportunities for people to you know, expand their houses. I had an experience just this last year when my father moved in with me, where the permitting process in Austin was very difficult, and I was just simply trying to accommodate moving a father in. So those kinds of things add to the expense of living in Austin, and really, I think, inhibit families from being able to stay in Austin. I think we need to think about those policies that the city has been setting. It's, I think it comes of leadership that has lived in the core of Austin, not really understanding the needs of the rest of, is the yellow stop?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Not really understanding the needs of the rest of the community, where in District 4, we still have some affordable housing, and trying to keep it that way and keep the families in District 4 is very important and should be a high priority. And I'll leave it with that.
Thank you.
All right, well, I do look forward to talking about some of the solutions, but at the heart of the problem, of course, you could do a whole myriad list of acute housing shortages, state rules that cause us to tax folks regressively for a lot of the public and basic services that we need, or state rules that keep us from asking from affordable housing in exchange for entitlements in some cases, or industries that are growing here that are not investing in human capital, or discrimination against folks based on their source of income. There's a whole list of those reasons, but I think at the heart of it all, I think it's really appropriate that we're here tonight, because at the heart of it all, I think, has to do with lack of political voice and lack of political power for working people and those that have moderate incomes in town. And I know I and many of the other candidates have probably had the really acute experience of how is it that you generate grassroots movement and real engagement on issues in a place like District 4, where the vast majority of our population is not eligible to vote or does not vote, because we have so many immigrants and so many young people, more than anywhere else in the entire city. And so that's why we're working holes into the bottom of our boots and working to really organize and bring folks together to address each of these issues, because at the heart of it, it has to do with the fact that we need to change the political conversation. District 4 is over 70% renters. And so a homestead exemption is not the affordability solution for District 4. While we do have folks that are overburdened on their taxes that are homeowners, and I'm supportive of some level of a homestead exemption, we can do more with those $38 million than purely just give a homestead exemption. And so in the next week or so, we're going to be putting out our own policy for how we can be doing utility rebates and weatherization alongside any homestead exemption dollars, so that we aren't purely giving tax breaks to those on $3 million homes for several $1,000s and putting that on the backs of renters who may see rental increases of up to $60 or $80 a year. And so we need to be building the conversation with renters, with working people across the district, and I think that's the great opportunity that this race provides, and what a District 4 council member should be doing is empowering our folks to speak up.
Thanks, Greg. So let's let me follow up with each of you on some of the things that you said. So we'll go in order, in the same order again. Lewis.
No, that's kind of a disadvantage, isn't it? Hear me, and I don't get to
So
hear
I'll tell
them.
you what. This is a follow-up question.
That's fine. I'm just saying, if I'm going to be first, I need a longer time. They would we'll take a copy off of
I
me.
tell you what, this is a follow-up question, but on the next new question, we'll go to Deal? Okay.
I'm just having fun.
So Lewis, you mentioned that the two key reasons for the affordability challenge are the outsiders or people outside the city moving here, the demand,
Right.
and then the spending and the taxes. Could you talk about how you would, is it possible to address those problems? And if you addressed those problems, would that solve the affordability problem?
It would help. One of the things that is on the horizon is tax rates. Interest rates are going to go up. So you're going to see a slowdown in housing in the city. The federal government's already announced that they are going to be reducing their subsidies, which we're going to see tax rates, or homeowners' rates. And we got a realtor down there. She may disagree or hope it doesn't happen, but I think we're going to be seeing 6%. When I first moved to Austin, my first house, I paid 18%. I tell people that, and they go, and that's going back to the Jimmy Carter. And I was lucky after Reagan came in, after about a year, I was able to refinance to 12%. And then I got down to 9% and 6%, and I go, hallelujah. But we're going to see rates go up. That's going to slow the housing market down some, but it's going to make it harder for people to get affordable housing. I have a lot of things I'm going to say. Prices are going to keep going up. The city of Austin, if you see what the school district is, we're going to have to ship a lot of stuff off. I kind of disagree with Greg down there about getting rebates and all this. The city of Austin infrastructure is falling apart. I work with all cities all over. They need to reinvest that money. The city of Austin finally went into an asset management program. We're going to see our sewer rates go up, our water rates go up, our electricity rates going up because we got to repay for the structures. So there is so much pressure on the city council, and yet we're spending money like at the library, and I'd rather see money spent on the local libraries than one big library, and then I'm rambling, I know. So I'll let the next person go.
No, it's okay, actually. But what I would like to know is what you would do about it.
What I would do, I will tell you, I'm cheap. I am a fiscal conservative. At work, I don't go and buy stuff, I reuse stuff. I look at work, I look at everything I spend, it's my dollars. I have always been that way. I'm real tight with my money. I always make sure, do I get a good value? And that's one thing I can guarantee if I get elected to the city. I know what things cost. I know what we should be doing. I know what engineering cost is. I know how much it costs to lay roads, how much it costs to lay water lines, sewer lines, stuff like this. And I'm not going to say, oh, we're Austin, let's go ahead and spend more. City of Austin, just for your information, City of Houston costs, say, $35 to lay, $35 a foot to lay a sewer line. In the city of Austin, it may cost you $75 just because of all the regulations that we have in this town. So we pay more just for living here. There's a lot of things that we can trim. There's a lot of things, we need to change the attitude. I was talking to the city of water people today, and they are gearing up. They're going, we're going to have to change the way we do things. We're going to have to look at all the districts. Now they said, we got 10 people to look at. The other thing that I see that's wrong with our city is we're supposed to have a city manager form of government. Right now, we have every city council member that basically kind of runs the city in their own little way. We need to go back to where the city council is. That we need to reduce a lot of the boards. We need to do a lot of things just to cut down on the regulations. As someone says, it takes so long to get permits. It costs so much to get permits. I was getting chewed out by, when I was walking neighborhood, by somebody saying how much it costs to go get a permit to just go trim his trees. And I, what is 3 minutes, 4 minutes?
You're close to 4.
Okay.
Yeah, please wrap it up.
Okay, I'll let the next one go.
Okay.
You want to give everyone 3 minutes total?
Yeah, let's do 3 minutes total.
He got an extra
And you don't have to do them first. You don't
He deserves it.
I won't count
Okay.
time to Roger.
Go ahead, Mark.
You're going to ask us.
What's the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. So you talked about subsidies to downtown and big companies, and again, you also sort of echoed Lewis on the people moving in and how that presents this supply and demand issue. How would you address those? And is it possible to address those and actually solve the affordability challenges?
Well, first of all, you're going to get 10 people elected in office first. This is going to be a problem that has so many factors involved with affordability. In order for this to get done, it's going to take a while. It's not going to be something where you put a Band-Aid on it and solve the problem. You first, it's got to start off with the appraisal tax reform that can be changed to the capital, through our elected officials. I want to make that priority 1 on our legislative agenda back in 2015. That can start the new wave of fixing the affordability issue first. Number 2 is we need to make sure that everything works together with affordability by developments, making sure the housing bond that passed last November, that the money is spent adequately, as well as that we still get more grants and monies through the federal government to proceed with this process of making sure developments are happening constantly. We also need to make sure, as well as we look around the city of Austin and make sure different areas like south, north, east, west, where we can put in housing, mixed-use projects to be able to have people to afford where they live. Because one of the biggest things right now is, I keep saying this, and the thing is, you have a lot of people working minimum wage. You have a lot of people just doing the bare necessities, and they can't afford an apartment, they can't afford a home, so they're renting a room within somebody's house. They're living with 3 people under one roof. These are major concerns, especially in District 4. But we have to address this as a whole in order for this to pass. Not even one person.
Thanks, Marco. Laura, so you mentioned the sort of culture of spending, and you also mentioned attracting people to Austin through advertising and things like that. So, 2 questions. First is, what would you do to address those? And then the second is, if you were to address those, let's say, maybe we just stop advertising, right? Stop advertising Austin, and maybe we get all of our spending under control. Would the affordability problem be solved?
I think you would have a huge impact that would be made. And like I said, I'm a small business owner. When I advertise, I get more business. And we're spending millions of dollars doing this. Growth today in Austin is not paying for itself. And that's the big issue. If you're spending $20 million a year in electric utility hookups to developers, that's our money. And I'm going to challenge Mr. Kassar, because you could take, you're getting $20 million that you're not spending with developers. And we actually have a budget that's $14 million each year that is in surplus. That can pay for homestead exemption with no impact to renters. So that whole argument really is a false argument, and I'm going to be real clear about that. We're spending $20 million a year, and that's Austin Energy's projections, estimations of how much we're going to save by charging developers impact fees. And we've got $14 million each year in surplus. There's your money for a homestead exemption for Austinites. And our proposal, which we presented to City Council back in June, before anybody else was talking about this, says you could phase this in 10%, 15%, 20% over 3 years and work with the legislature to do a flat tax, which would be cheaper for the city budget. A flat tax exemption of about $40,000 would give kind of your average median homeowners a really good exemption of about $220 a year savings. And then they work with the legislature to do a flat rate, would save us $10 million in the city budget. So that's the proposal. You have to start with the taxes. You have to stop, advertising for people to come here so we can fix our issues. We have traffic issues. We have affordability issues. We have a lot of issues here in Austin, and if we could grow organically, it would be a lot better.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Monica, how can we invest in our citizens, and would that solve the affordability challenges that we have?
It won't solve all of it, no, but it is a start. For those who are familiar with the Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan, there are 8 priorities listed in Chapter 5. Priority 3 is about investing in the education and training of our workforce. I mean, it's stated right there in a plan that the whole community was supposed to be involved in. I don't even remember how many groups, thousands of hours involved with the community. And I was part of that back in 2009 when they were doing that at the convention center. They've got it written in a book that's this thick. So they need to take their own advice. I mean, when they can work with the school district is the one primarily responsible. They have their own budget, but they also have to send a lot of money back up to the state. The state sees Austin as property rich, but we are student poor, family poor. So a lot of money goes back, and the students are suffering for it. Personally, as far as the school district goes, I think they need to realign their resources so the funding is equitable to better ensure equal education. But they're still going to come up short. The city can help make up that shortage, not all of it, but part of it, that's part of their responsibility, through a partnered program, like through cultural arts or other programs that benefit them. They can encourage partnerships in the business community to help with apprenticeships for students that could lead them into summer jobs, keeps them off the street, out of trouble. It's economic development. They learn about earning money, being responsible, and if they're not going to college, it puts them on a path for a possible, whether short-term, long-term work or career possibilities. And there's also, they said the deal with the developers and your in lieu of fee. I know, once I understood what that was, I think it's wrong. If they're going to keep it, I think it needs to be tweaked so that when developers do have affordable housing, that it's not just 10 units of shoeboxes. How is a family of 4 supposed to fit in a shoebox? They need to make it better defined. If you're going to have affordable housing, because you're doing that, the 10% from your baseline, then you need to have X number of efficiencies, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. That way it better serves the community. I don't believe, as far as the supply and demand of housing, I still don't believe. I'm not a realtor, so I'll leave that one to Sharon, but I've seen apartments coming up, more and more built. I've seen what happened to East Austin. I don't see the prices coming down. But the market seems to be controlling that one, not the building of it. So it's a very complex issue, and these are just bits and pieces that I know and understand. So that's where I think I would start working on it.
So, Roberto, we hear Monica sort of challenging your notion that the...
I was going to start a headlock.
I want to make the front views. I'll ingest, we're friends.
Oh my goodness.
So Roberto, you had mentioned that supply and demand were at play that specifically we had a shortage of supply, and that was one of the causes of our affordability challenges. So what would you do to address the supply shortage that you see? And to Monica's point, would that solve or substantially address our affordability challenges?
I don't think it is supply and demand. And I kind of say this, I'm not a realtor, but I was in property management for about 10 years, so I understand what the market is. And so, first of all, it's creating a sustainable plan that will protect our neighborhood plans. That's one of the things that we do need to protect, that we are protecting our neighborhood plans, but also finding ways to create additional housing. There's a lot of vacant lots that we can use to create additional housing. And I think one of the things that we could do is the permits. City Hall doesn't treat, especially the business owners, they don't treat them as a customer. The small businesses generate a lot of money, and City Hall doesn't treat them like they're supposed to, like customers. I think if City Hall changed that perspective of treating small business owners as customers, there would be additional revenue coming into the city. And that would, that kind of ties into additional housing, building additional housing, whether it be on vacant lots and looking at different, it's a multi-pronged approach to developing additional housing.
What's the tie-in between the approach to small business and the additional housing?
You have a lot of contractors that have to go through the permitting process, and sometimes, and I've talked to several contractors that they put them out 6 months, far out. What are they going to do with 6 months? They won't take on that project. So that kind of slows down the availability of housing that could be built.
Okay, so obstacles to new housing and
streamlining the permit process would be one of the things as far as creating additional housing, especially in District 4, we have some availability, but protecting our neighborhood plan and working with the neighbors.
Okay, thanks, Roberto. Sharon, on the saturated rental market. So you brought up an interesting point about the rental market versus owning homes, and how the rental market is saturated, and if you were able to, you might be able to relieve some of that pressure by enabling some of the renters to move into homes that they own. How would you go about doing that? And would you like to elaborate further on what could be done in order to relieve that saturation of the rental market?
Sure. So when I bought my house, the city had this really awesome program going where it was for people who had challenges to buying their first home. If you could qualify credit-wise for this program with income and everything, basically the city would buy the house and rent it back to you for 2 years. And for 2 years, if you never were late, never had a problem, the money that you paid into that rent became your down payment. And you basically would be converted from a renter to an owner. I thought it was a really great program. A lot of my employees signed up for that. And I thought it was very interesting way to address taking people who should be owners and helping to bridge that gap to say, how can we invest in first-time home buyers, people that could and should be buying a home, but they need just a little bit of help. I'm not necessarily saying, hey, we should do that program again over and over, but I think it's that kind of mentality to say that in this housing market that we're in, we do have a shortage. There's a shortage of builders. There's a shortage of ability to actually build new homes. So to look at our population and say, how can we invest in this group and support them and try to move people out of this population that shouldn't be here. I work with residential and commercial real estate, and I've worked with people who are looking for rental property $1,500 a month, $1,700 a month. I mean, that's a really big mortgage payment. And so to try and convert these people and understand, like, you should be buying a home, but for them, there's no homes to buy in that price range in Austin. That if they were going to buy a house for $185,000, that's Round Rock, Maine, or Pflugerville, and they want to live in Austin. And so they're going to rent until their income goes up, or they can save more money, or do whatever it takes to be able to buy in Austin. And so that's really kind of a part of the problem, is to say that home purchase, the ability to buy a house in Austin for some of these entry-level prices, which quite frankly, I think $150,000 is not too shabby. You know, it's kind of sad that that's an unattainable price point in the city. And so that's what we're seeing. A lot of people who want to live in Austin, they have to rent because there's no home purchase opportunity. The average home price in Austin is like $235,000. You know, that's a huge amount of money for someone's first time buying a house. So I think that as a city, we need to say, how can we support getting this group who should be able to purchase at this amount, get them out of renting and get them into home ownership?
Thanks, Sharon. Katrina, you had mentioned a story. I'm not sure if it was your grandmother or somebody.
My father.
Your father. Okay. Can you tell us more about that story and how that relates to affordability, and how you would address the obstacles that were in that story to providing greater affordability?
Yeah. So, I guess about a year ago, my dad lost his wife. My dad has dementia, and I'm an only child, so I had to bring my father into my home, and I had to make modifications to I have a very small home. A family was raised in it, but it's small by today's standards, and so I needed to find a way to bring my father into the home, and I was on a very short timeline because I suddenly needed a place for my dad to live. And so the difficulties with permitting and the cost, I mean, we may do, but it just made me realize the struggles that families have. You'd like to be able to stay in your home, and I think in a district like 4, where we do still have affordable houses, if you can make modifications to your home as your family grows or as your family needs change, then that can go toward a sustainable, more affordable lifestyle within Austin. So I'd like to. So I work right now. My current role is in a regulatory environment, and one thing that I think is important is you need guardrails with regulations. You want to set parameters, but it shouldn't. The permitting process and the guardrails shouldn't be so difficult that it's hard for the average consumer to navigate. Regulations ought to be clear, easy to understand, and predictable. We have in our audience tonight somebody who had difficulty with that very situation where they made a modification to their property, a city inspector came and okayed it, and then another one came along and made a different interpretation, and that's frustrating. And as a regulator, in all my experience, I very much try to ensure that folks I work with don't have that problem. So will that solve the affordability situation? No. I mean, I think some of the other issues that have been discussed as well, I mentioned that I serve on the ACC Highland Campus Advisory Committee and on the Airport Boulevard Redesign Committee. Those initiatives were, if you've been by Highland Mall, and I'm sure a lot of you have, you know it's been a blighted mall with a big asphalt parking lot, way underutilized property for where it is in proximity to town. And through those two initiatives, through ACC's work and the Airport Boulevard redesign work, we worked with the community and are looking at ways to better develop that area that will bring amenities to the community, more housing opportunities, we're working on having an affordability component to that as well. So I think those are solutions that will go toward dealing with affordability, but it's a complex issue, and there are many other tools and techniques that we need to apply.
Thank you, Katrina. Greg, do you want to address what Laura brought up about the homestead exemption and the idea that we have enough money to afford that and not affect the renters?
Sure. So, you know, budgets change. Sometimes you get more money than you would expect. Sometimes you get less. Some current proposals are to apply a homestead exemption at 20%, phased in perhaps, and then raise the tax rate to make up for it. And considering our occupancy rates right now, and friends who are landlords and could tell you what they will do, most likely rents in that situation might go up. Now, if we do wind up having a $38 million surplus that next year, of course, that would also assume that we'd have that every single year to continue covering the homestead exemption. The question is, what do we do with it? Do we apply it in such a means that only the homeowners benefit and the vast majority of those homeowners are those that own more expensive homes where the majority of those dollars go? Or should we apply it in such a way that also helps moderate income homeowners, low income homeowners, and renters? And there are ways that we can spend that money so that if we do happen to have $38 million extra, which would be a boon, how is it that we choose to spend it? And our district is primarily renters who, by definition, would not have a homestead exemption. And so we should be very careful when we start the community conversation about tax relief, about how, coming from District 4, we are not providing tax relief that primarily relieves folks west of Mopac and not the folks that live up Cameron Road or up North Lamar. And so the question comes back to who has political power, who has political voice, and I think it's so important for us to build coalitions between homeowners and renters so that the first day in office we send the email out saying, hey, we made it to City Hall, now let's talk about equitable tax relief. And I think that is the kind of leadership that we need to provide for an area that has had so little political voice in the past. That's what I wish President Obama had done his first week in office. You know, I was getting emails from him every single day, and we were driving vans of folks out to the polls. And when he got there, we never got an email that said, hey, let's talk about health care. You know, it just sort of disappeared. And I think that was a great mistake that he made that I regret so deeply, and I hope that we as a future council can build that legitimacy with our district and build that engagement so that we are thinking, well, if we have $38 million spare dollars, what is the best way to use it and how can we use it equitably? So I'm not opposed to a homestead exemption. As a matter of fact, I support having some level of a homestead exemption for overburdened homeowners, and we should have a community conversation about how we can benefit both homeowners, renters, and folks of all incomes when we do that.
Thanks, Craig. So the next question is going to concern transportation and more specifically urban rail, which a lot of you have probably heard about recently. And what I'd like each of you to focus on, and feel free to sort of, if you have a position on the current urban rail proposal, feel free to talk about it, but I'd like more specifically for you to address what criteria do you use for any rail proposal to decide whether it is something worth supporting? So that's first and foremost. Please answer that question of what criteria determine whether a rail plan works for you. So let's start with Greg this time.
Great. Choose talk again.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Okay, great. I personally have decided that I do not feel comfortable voting yes on the current rail proposal. And that has to do with some of the themes that have been brought up by everyone about the issues in the district, which is that the city has not implemented a comprehensive plan related to affordability for the city. And I think that that's a really critical first step for me and many folks in our district to feel comfortable supporting this rail plan, even if it serves it. And I think that lots of folks have put a lot of work, a lot of important work into putting together the current rail proposal, but the community at large and the community in District 4 still remains very divided. And I think that I would like to see true grassroots support, and broader grassroots support amongst folks to be able to support a rail plan. So that's very important to me. Now, once again, this election is going up to the voters in November, and they will ultimately decide whether we see the rail get built. I think that federal matching funds are incredibly important, and I'm glad that that was included in the current language. We need to be able to build a rail as effectively and cheaply as possible. And I think that seeing high ridership numbers projected by the time the rail is built is very important so we can keep the subsidy per rider as low as possible. If the rail proposal does not pass, I think the current proposed route is very prime for bus rapid transit, perhaps with some modification. Folks in District 4 ride the bus, and buses require a lower subsidy per rider. And so I think that that will be something that if it does not pass, I will be very quick to support and then build the community conversation about how we can pair true affordability with transit investment. I support rail very much as a theory and as a concept and look forward to seeing the arguments roll out in the weeks and months to come, but that's currently where I stand on that issue.
Thanks, Greg. Katrina?
I'm standing here sitting.
I just feel so far
I like sitting.
You like sitting, okay. I'm really not going to say a lot different than what Greg said. I'm still undecided on the current proposal, but some of the things that Greg mentioned are very important to me as well. I've been a long supporter of rail. I was on the Alliance for Public Transportation that was the precursor to the support for the current commuter rail. I've seen the value of that line in District 4 and for the region. And I think we have got to make some significant strides on mass transit. I'd really like to see us move forward as a city. That said, I've heard loud and clear from a lot of folks in District 4, even in Highland where I live, folks are divided, and mainly divided around the alignment. The issue of aligning along the Lamar-Guadalupe route versus the proposed route that would terminate at the Highland Mall area is hugely controversial. I too was glad to see the ballot language that included the federal funds. That's critical. We need to have that funding component, I think, to move forward. But and ridership too. I think that that's really important. Some of the I know some of the development and some of the projects that are planned along the proposed alignment are going to be huge economic engines for this city and for the region. So all that said, I think in the broader sense, I'm a proponent of mass transit and rail, but I think we also have other tools that we can use. The bus rapid transit, other bus routes are really critical as well, and I would like to see, I know when you talk to Capital Metro, they talk about their civic engagement. When I talk to folks in District 4, I'm not sure they've been fully engaged or feel fully engaged, and stakeholder input is critical to ensuring that you make the best policy decisions.
Thanks, Katrina. Sharon?
Excuse me. I definitely agree with a lot of those points. I am a big fan of mass transit, and I think that the transportation woes that we have in Austin are going to require a variety of tactics. I think that urban rail has a place in that. I will say honestly, I was really excited when the conversation about urban rail first started because I thought it had the potential to really do some wonderful things in our community, especially when it was going to involve North Austin. Excuse me. Right now, I'm very concerned about a lot of the language of this, proposed rail, where we're having what almost seems like if you want this, you have to get that, where we're talking about now we have aligned repairing highways with rail. And on some level, yes, we don't want to have single source solutions, especially to something like transportation, but it almost feels like a bullying of, our highways are so in such need of repairs to say, you want something, but you're going to get all or nothing. I think that's not a right solution for this, and I think it disserves both parts of that. I would definitely like to see, excuse me, the conversation that really engages our community about this rail, because there are a lot of heated conversations on both sides. I do think that we need to have rail that affects our traffic and that it does support ridership so that we actually see those trains filled with people. But I think we also need to know that rail in itself is not going to fix transportation. It's one of many solutions that we need to have.
All right. Thank you, Sharon. Roberto?
Just so I'm sure that I answered your question, can you repeat the question? I've
So the
been
question
trying to
is-
think through all of it. I was
So the
like,
question is, what criteria
Criteria.
do you think should be applied in order to determine whether a rail plan is worth supporting?
One of the things that I look at is the price tag. Is how much is it going to cost? Because eventually that trickles down to who? Taxpayer. To taxpayer. So the taxpayer is the one who gets, the end of it. So that's kind of one of the things. And the other thing is efficiency. As it currently stands, the current proposal, I am not in favor of. I'm not going to repeat everything that all y'all three have said, because it's the same thing. It just comes back down to the price tag, efficiency, and it's really not serving District 4.
What does efficiency mean to you?
That it's not going to take me 3 hours to get to downtown. The other day I was trying to take data from the main center here on Lamar, Transit Center on Lamar, to go to downtown, and it was going to take me about 2 hours to get there. I was just like, takes me, even in a lot of traffic, it'll take me 45 minutes to get downtown. So that's not very.
That's an example of using the current system?
The current system,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, so and like Greg said, ultimately the voters will decide, and District 4 is really split on that. Now looking at the numbers as far as the recuperation for Cap Metro, as the system-wide is 11.7%.
Yep.
And I look at it from my perspective, having been in business, having my master's in business, working on my doctorate in business, that's really, pardon the language, really crappy.
Yeah.
So you're echoing something that Greg mentioned earlier.
Well,
with
yeah.
respect, it relates to subsidy, the subsidy that the taxpayer has to pay in order to support the system.
Well, sort of, but I'm going to take it a step further because now I have 30 seconds. So the long-term goal is to get to 20%. I don't know if that'll ever happen. My proposal is that we look at the other 39 cities here in the United States that provide free service to their riders. A lot of the individuals that are using mass transit are, my clients who have 3 jobs. Are the individuals that are working downtown and they have to get back at 2, 3 in the morning to get home. Those are the individuals that we need to be serving. And we could look at these other 39 cities in the US that provide this free service and maybe model it behind that. If we're only getting 11%, I'm pretty sure if we have a surplus of $38 million, that we can find some of that money. Or, the other thing, hey, instead of buying a golf course, how about we spend that money in our citizens who live in District 4? Because District 4 is the main people who are washing dishes, who are cooking our food downtown, who are building all of our buildings downtown, who staff all of our major events here in Austin. So why not provide them with that service so they can get around? And not only that, if there's free service, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people will take mass transit and it will alleviate our traffic problems. That way y'all learn the building from our last event. In looking at that, and there's already a model in 39 cities across the United States that's been effective. I think that's something worth looking at.
Okay, thanks, Roberto. Monica, you want to go now?
Let's see, how much of my time did he use up? No.
I'll give you
I'm
30
just kidding.
seconds for my next time. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I would say, Sharon really nailed it on the head when she was talking about, the citizens are being bullied. If you want this, you have to have that. There needs to be clarity in language. I mean, that's like, I don't want to get off topic, but what was it, the housing bonds proposition, not the last one, but the one before, it failed because there wasn't clarity. Same thing with the urban rail one. It's not clear. People really only have to vote on the rail part, not the roads part. But if people are really not up on it, don't know what's going on, they haven't a clue. I'm glad that there's a lot of talk in social media about that, but for the people who are disconnected, they're not aware of that. That's why it's a really big need for community engagement, community dialogue. Like, that's what I like to do, Greg does, and I think we all do at some level in our campaigns or just our lives in general. We need to make sure that people are informed. I'm totally against Project Connect. I'll just come out and say it. I give it a double thumbs down. Cisco and Ebert, 2 thumbs down. They talk about engaging the community in the planning. I don't think they did. A lot of people were left out of the conversation. And right there, that should have tanked it right there. So that's where I stand on that one. In order to find a transportation system that works, rail does need to be a part of it. It's not gonna be the cure-all. And I was at, was about a month or so ago, I was at Round Rock at an RTCC workshop. That's a Regional Transit Coordination Committee workshop. Somebody there from, I think she was from Campo, was talking about how, well, the reason they set up the route that they did was for the workforce density downtown. It's like, hello, they live up in the North Lamar corridor. They live up in District 4. Why, you know, why are you forgetting them? So, totally against Project Connect.
Unequivocal. Thank you. Laura, go ahead.
Yes, this is a great question, and I do not support Project Connect, the rail route that is defined right now, for two main reasons. One is it's too expensive, $1.4 billion, and it's not going to really deal with the traffic issues that it has said it's going to be dealing with. They did not put this rail line in where it should have gone, which is along the highest density corridor and our biggest traffic issue. And that's up and down the Lamar, Guadalupe-Lamar route. And I think the biggest problem with this is, you look at what's happened with the city council. They have put this on the ballot. There's no middle ground here. They have missed the middle solution. And what it's gonna do is waste how many millions of dollars, again, on a solution that the people do not want. If they had done a full community engagement, a proper community engagement, they would have heard it. I've been block walking for 3 months. I have talked to one person in District 4 that wants rail. 1 in 3 months. I had another guy, I was at his house this weekend, and he made the great analysis. This $1.4 billion to take off 10,000 cars, that's $140,000 per car. You know what? I'll get off of the road during rush hour for $100,000. How about that? I'll give them a deal, right? 2/3, you know, the price. So the solution is way too expensive. It doesn't fix the problem. And the other issue is it puts it along the downtown route that's going to encourage more development. How many cars is it going to put on I-35? About 10% of people, in the best cases in this country, in cities, ride rail. 10% is the best case. We're way below that. It's too much, it's not the right thing. And the council really lacked in leadership. Here in North Austin, we have coordinated with Love North Austin, and we're having a community rail forum on the 26th. And we're gonna have that community conversation that should have happened before. And we've organized that.
Thank you, Laura. Marco.
Well, you know, November 4th, we're going to have 2 things on the ballot. We're going to have rail, we're also going to have ACC 1. Last year, we had the medical school, and we had the housing bond. I'm looking at it this way. When are we going to stop putting so many bonds every year on election day? That's too much of a burden on the homeowners. Too much. You have, you know, city council, you know, leave left and rail or fail. The only option. You have Senator Kurt Watson pushing it, having his own agenda, having his own workshops, and pushing it, and trying to influence us in a way to understand why it's right for Austin. That's got to stop. You know, we got to make our own opinions about this. It's too expensive, and we just can't afford it anymore. You know, we're talking about affordability. How are we talking about affordability when we keep on putting bonds and they're trying to push us to pass them and then increasing our taxes? It's not right. You know, we're the little guys here. You know, when are they going to take care of us? And the rail's supposed to help out urban areas. It's not. It's not. So I'm totally against it. Even though I think, you know, I don't want to disregard the whole idea, but I don't think it's right for now and where it is.
All right, thank you, Marco.
I get this go, right?
Yeah. Finally.
It does seem like a long time coming this way.
You're just never satisfied.
I am Louis C. Harris III.
You get to go first next time.
All right. Now, I will say I am against the way the rail project is. They're selling it saying they're going to put the college students. The college students aren't going to ride the rail. They got a free bus service. They're not riding. They're not coming on here. If you really look at it, where that rail line is ending, there's a lot of area for development. This is for development. This is taken out to the airport. So this is just BS. I will tell you, I am tired in this city You know, as you said, the hospital. We voted on the hospital. We didn't vote on damn hospital last year. We voted on indigent care. You know, they kept saying, we need a hospital, school in this area. But they didn't say A&M is building one in Round Rock. No one knew about that. You go talk to the bond people. And they were saying, oh, we did it for the hospital. I said, no, you fought for indigent care. That was what you voted on. But most people thought it was for putting a hospital school in this town. I am tired of the way this city does things. Remember, when we were trying to vote for the airport, we kept voting it down and all this, but then they came up with this nice plan where we're going to have this nice star and all this other stuff, and showing this is how the new airport's going to look. And then after we voted, oh, that's not the way we're going to do it, but they kept packaging it different ways. I am tired of this city blowing smoke up everybody's deal. I like that sign. Okay. You know, so, and I will tell you, if I'm on the council, you will hear, I am loud. I just want you to know that. I grew up in a family of 3 brothers and a sister. And everybody says I yell. And I guarantee you will hear me on the city council if you elect me.
Thank you, Louis.
Go in the middle.
Start
in the middle.
Want to start in the middle this time?
You see, I'm taking leadership. I want you to start in the middle. Like I said, I'm a BSer.
So we've got some questions from the audience here. So let's start with one of them. And this is going to go back to affordability a little bit, but what it asks is, name a specific city policy you would adjust to address affordability. Specific, and then we'll start in the middle. We're going to start with Roberto, and we're going to go towards Greg, and then we'll come back with Monica through this.
We'll say 1 minute.
We'll say 1 minute.
That's going to be hard.
One specific city policy you would adjust to address affordability.
I don't know if it's a specific policy, but more looking at the way that the city hands out subsidies to a lot of these big corporations and kind of taking a look at that. It's not per se a policy, but it is something that kind of has developed into a policy that a company comes into the city of Austin and right away, what do they ask for? They ask for an incentive or they ask for some kind of subsidy. And a lot of the time, that really doesn't trickle down to what happens in District 4. It's generally serving the higher end and kind of having that conversation that, you know, we should start looking at the individuals that live in District 4 and how is it that they're going to benefit from that. A lot of the times they don't benefit from that. So it's kind of looking at the subsidies and all the incentives that big corporations are looking at. Like, it's not a specific policy, but it is a way that City Hall is being run.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up. Sharon, one specific policy that the city could adjust, that you would adjust in order to address the affordability situation?
Well, I would definitely go with, excuse me, investing in our local businesses. When we talk about some of these subsidies that we're giving to national companies that are coming here that are being footed by us local citizens that are unnecessary, I would say let us take that money and invest it in our local economy. Like in District 4, I think we have a great opportunity to bring density into the city. And instead of investing in some insurance company that would come to Austin anyway, let us take that and invest in supporting affordable housing being built in this district.
Okay, thanks, Sharon. Katrina.
I might get in trouble here because I'm going to talk about land use and permitting, kind of consistent with what I said earlier, that I think where we can create opportunities for people to stay in their homes, make modifications, allow for additional density within within the confines of a neighborhood plan or within the confines of, you know, a broad stakeholder input that allows development within the context and fabric of a neighborhood. I think lifting some of those restrictions or evaluating them in a way that allows things to happen that are more consistent with what a community wants would go a long way to helping affordability and helping people to stay in the homes that they're in as their needs change.
Thank you, Katrina. Greg?
I'm going to fit 3 in a minute. So 1, passing non-discrimination based on source of income, as in that process has begun at the city, so that folks that have things like Section 8 vouchers don't get turned away. 2nd, a comprehensive land banking plan where we can own our own land and then require certain affordability standards on that land and create good jobs. I worked recently to work really hard negotiating on the TC Green site, which is now being developed and has a 20% workforce development and local hiring component, along with affordable units required. And then 3rd and final, an expansion of our weatherization program for whole neighborhoods as well as renters. Investments of as little as $300 fixing leaky ducts can help renters and homeowners save much more than that just in a year.
All right, thank you, Greg. Monica, you want to come back the other direction here?
Me go that way, let her go left.
No, I'll go next. I have no problem with that.
No, I'm just telling you, I'm just trying to circulate it. So you're not all front.
That's fine. We didn't, let's, if you don't mind, let's go with Lewis, because that lets him go in the middle, as he's
Okay.
wanted to do.
It's not so much on the middle, it's just, one of the policy that I would have is, the city is dictating a lot of stuff. They're dictating how to build a house. There's a policy that they're looking at is saying, if you sell your house, you're gonna have to do all these upgrades. That's gonna hurt affordability, and that's one of the things I would take, if we're looking at this, is what I would stop, is you have to look at the house the way it is. You don't have to go out there and make all these massive improvements to make it green. You know, that's gotta be up to the individual who's buying the house. I got 30 seconds. And that's what I'm looking at. I'm getting tired of being dictated on how to do things. You have to do this, you have to do that, to sell your house. So, and that's what I would look at. Just get rid of the requirements.
Okay.
It's Big Brother watching us.
Thanks, Lewis. Marco?
2 things that I feel that could change something, you know, drastically and, you know, within a time right when you're in city council will be number 1, it's the purchasing department, you know, fixing the permitting. That can definitely have more efficiency on people, you know, fixing their homes in a timely manner. And number 2, I'm a big supporter of granny flats. I think that's another idea if someone wants to invest in their home to be able to provide another option of increasing the value of your home and as well as providing more income at the end of the year for yourself.
Thank you, Marco. Laura?
So this is kind of 2-part. One is developers should pay for their fees, because if they don't, we're doing it. And it, just Austin Energy, $20 million a year. And I would ask everybody on here, how much is it going to save, that your proposal? What is it? What's the number? I'm going to tell you, Austin Energy, $20 million a year. There are subsidies we give to corporations, no more of that. The growth needs to pay for itself. And in lieu of that, what do we do to invest in businesses here? Right now, the city of Austin spends tens of millions of dollars every week outside of Austin for contracts. We should be prioritizing local small businesses for those contracts. The Austin Independent Business Alliance, I'm a small business owner, has quoted, they have documented that 40% of the funds that are spent in Austin stay here. This is how you incentivize and grow small businesses in Austin without giving them a flat subsidy, but you give them the contract when they meet the criteria. Those are the 2 main things I would change.
Thank you. Monica?
Okay, so I can fire this one off fast. Make sure that corporations and big businesses are paying their fair share on property tax so that homeowners and renters are not cost burdened. Same thing with Austin Energy and Austin Water Utility. They need to pay their fair share so the residents aren't doing it. Make use of public lands that are owned by the city, by Austin Energy. Make them available through the existing land banks of the Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Council or Austin, Corporation, or Austin Habitat for Humanity. Also, I want to see about possibly a governmental land bank like the city of Dallas has, which can make use of foreclosed property through places like for LifeWorks, Foundation Communities. And then also the Austin Generation Task Force, I always get their name mixed up, had a draft report. Page 8 has equity recommendations, which includes the weatherization program for low and near low income residents. I've already spoken twice to the commission recommending those equity recommendations to the council.
Thanks, Monica, and thanks all of you for being attentive to the time limits. I'd like to ask one more. I'd like to squeeze in one more if I can here from the audience, and we'll just do 30 seconds each for this one. So this one is: are you in favor of taking in additional people into District 4?
We did do the 30-second one.
Are you for accepting additional people, additional population in District 4? And if so, how would you house them? How and where would you house them? So let's start with Greg on this one. Actually, no, let's start with Sharon because she already started to talk about this.
Okay, in 30 seconds I would tell you yes, I would take an additional population. I think that we have an opportunity to increase density here. I would say that in our commercial real estate, which we have an abundance of, there's a potential to add residential on top of that. I think that if we are driving that train, we can make it so it fits into our neighborhood, serves the community, and reflects the needs of the community. And if we do not drive that train, to know that once East Austin has been squeezed of all of their money, it will be coming here.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Now let's go to Greg.
Sure. So I think that if we had our own version of the Statue of Liberty, it should sit in front of District 4 and maybe have Willie Nelson on the front. We are an accepting community. We already are the densest district in the city, but we have not seen as significant a population growth as other parts of the city. And so I think that our community is very welcoming. And the question is where or how would we house them?
Yeah, how would you accommodate the additional folks?
Sure, so I'm somebody that's worked really hard to have difficult conversations, and I would be someone that could bridge the needs and concerns of our neighborhoods, our environmental community, to find out where housing supply fits best. But we do have lots of vacant land, we do have city-owned land, we have car dealerships that are just in like large parking lots, and you'll see them all around the district. And so I think there are places for it. I recently had a conversation with somebody that said, we have all these homeless folks that live in District 4. Why don't we house them if they already live here with us? And I think that's really the spirit of most of the folks that I've talked to in the district.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
So I think I mentioned something about this earlier too, in that I think we do have, we have these major transportation corridors that run right through District 4 that I think are in many places underdeveloped. We, in the Highland neighborhood and work that I've done in Highland, we've worked with the Austin Community College, with Red Leaf Development, to look at ways to build amenities for the community, but also allow for more density in the area in a place that is already on a commuter rail line. Gosh, that was a fast minute. So the answer is yes, and I'm already working on that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you, Katrina. Let's go to, I don't want to take you by surprise, but Marco.
I see growth, opportunity, and investment in this district. I think it's time for us to shine. I think it's time for us to not be overlooked anymore. I can see, us working with different stakeholders, building bridges, and to come up with great ideas to provide new developments here in District 4. It's got to be a team, it's got to be a community that we all can work together to realize where are the actual areas where we can implement new residential places within the district.
Okay, thanks, Marco. Monica?
Yes, I would, under the proviso that we can protect existing single-family homes, we can maintain and increase the availability of affordable housing, and by that I mean is that we are making sure that the people are not cost burdened with the cost of renting, of their rent or mortgage payment. By definition, I use what's on the CAN, the Community Advancement Network, on their website, that's no one should be paying more than 30% of their monthly income. whether you're a renter or a homeowner paying a mortgage payment. So, and then, like I said, land use, public land.
Thank you. Laura?
It's a great question. I'm on the Restore Rembrandt team, and one of the team's priorities is to look at land that is undeveloped. We have a lot of undeveloped land in District 4. And the challenge is, though, when you put higher density, now it's new construction, and my gosh, those rooms and those apartments are going to go at market rate, which is in the $1,100 to $1,300 range. We have to do something to maintain that the new development has to be affordable. And in our district, affordable is about $800 to $900 a month, and that's still high. That is still high. So it's a challenge with new construction, but we would gladly welcome it. And we're actually the Restore Rembrandt team are working on this.
Thank you, Laura. Lewis?
Well, yeah, I think we're all going to kind of agree to have more people come into the district. And we do have, I don't know if we have a lot of land, we do have a few big lots in the area, and we have some smaller areas. But if a developer's going to come in and develop it, he's going to develop it into multifamily. And I agree with Laura that the prices are going to be outrageous, and I don't know how to do it, to be honest with you. I'm honest.
Okay. All right, so let's wrap things up with.
You forgot one.
Roberto, you go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah, I would accept only registered voters. And the reason for that would be so we could have a voice, because we do have a lot of individuals who are unable to vote, and that's kind of one of the things that Greg alluded to earlier, is that we need to give these individuals a voice. And without that silliness, I would accept everybody. And it's just looking at the vacant properties, encouraging the city hall to encourage development of those properties, but at the same time not forgetting our neighborhood funds.
Okay. All right, now, thank you, all of you, and let's finish up with 30-second closing statements. Just kind of summarizing why you think, what you want to bring to City Council in order to help District 4. And let's start, let's go this way.
I get to go?
Yep, you go.
See, I started, and I guess I'm not ending it. What I would like to see in District 4, or what I like to see overall, is I'd like to see the quality of life to go up a little. If you go to certain parts of this district, the quality of life is kind of poor, and other parts of the district it's a little better off. I'd like to see it kind of more equal out, and I know that's kind of a wimpy way of saying, I'm not sure. Because it's coming off guard with the question.
Can we go last for him?
Huh?
You know, District 4 has been overlooked for so many years. And it's we finally have a chance to have a voice with the new 10-1. You know, there's so many issues. I mean, we just basically survived on the basics for so long. You know, we need everything, to be honest with you. But we gotta start somewhere. And that somewhere has to basically do with crime. We really gotta focus on the Rumberg issue, but as well as focus on affordability and transportation, since we're right in between Lamar 183. All these issues has to be basically a good voice to support this at City Hall. I'm the right person for the job because I could bring that voice. I could build bridges together with stakeholders. I've been involved in government for over 10 years, and this is what I can do. And I want to bring that to City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Laura?
So the main reason I'm running is to deal with the affordability issues in District 4. We are the most economically challenged districts in the whole city. And two ways to do that. Reduce the taxes to homeowners, and then reduce the taxes to renters. And I'm going to tell you, if you look at your utility bill, those fees are a tax to renters. You have to deal with that also. And this culture of we're rich that's down at City Hall has to be changed. I've been fighting that for years and have made huge progress on that. And I would love to have your vote. Thank you.
Monica?
I'm an activist at heart. As an activist, I have been speaking at school board meetings, city hall, health, regarding education, housing, and healthcare issues. As an activist, which I've already been doing this for several years, I'm already representing the people. So becoming a candidate, it just changes my perspective, but I'm still doing the same thing I've already been doing. Like I said, I'm a native Austinite. I care very deeply for the community, for the city. It is my home, and I don't tend to go anywhere anytime soon. Thank you.
Mayor Terry.
So the fun, I know, everybody's getting up. The fundamental premise of 10-1 is that we put the neighbors first. And that's kind of when I started looking and considering being a candidate, is that I'm going to put your needs first. Not special interests, not all these groups that are endorsing us or anything like that. It's who is the neighbor who really matters, whether it be a homeowner or whether it be the renter. We have to find a balance. And you know, I've been working in the neighborhood for the last couple of years. I've been here for 5 years, and it wasn't something that, you know, just all of a sudden I wanted to do. And you know, now I have an opportunity to work with the neighbors because I can run for city council. I've been working in this neighborhood for the last couple of years, and that's kind of what I will bring all of my experience to city hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron.
Well, I want to conclude with, you know, I think we've all talked about a lot of the challenges that we have in District 4 and in the city, but I want to conclude with the fact that the reason I'm running is because I love my neighborhood. I've lived in this community for almost 10 years and I love it very dearly. And I want to be a champion for District 4. We have a lot of great things going on in our district. We have a lot of great opportunities. Yes, we have challenges. Yes, we have things that we need to work on, but we also have wonderful things happening here, and I want people to know that about District 4. I've worked in this community my entire adult life, and I intend to continue that as I have, but I really want to be the champion for District 4, and I ask for your support in making sure that Austin sees us and respects what we have here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting and having us tonight. So I'm running in District 4 because I think I bring a unique set of skills and experiences unique among the candidates, having served the community for more than a decade, worked on issues that we've talked about tonight, transportation and how it affects District 4, development and density and shaping a blighted mall, and but all within the context of our neighborhood plan. Those are all initiatives that I've been a part of in the Highland area, and I'd like to continue working on that in District 4 as a whole.
Thank you.
So some folks asked me what gave you the crazy idea to be a city council member, like that would be a good job or a good idea. So the story I tell is actually that I had conversations with many folks that were close to me, many folks with experience in being a council member, and many people told me that I should run, but there was one person in particular who was a former city council member that I had breakfast with that told me not to run and said that I seem like somebody that cares about social equity and social justice issues, and that's not really what the city council deals with. And so I should go do something else to keep working at my nonprofit. And that is exactly the attitude that needs to change at the city. We don't have a prosperity problem here, we have a shared prosperity problem. And I have the experience negotiating against powerful interests, oftentimes many suits on the other side, that takes years of policy making and coalition building to get done, but we've passed policies that folks thought would be impossible, building thousands of more affordable units in the city and raising wages for thousands more workers in the years to come. And that's the kind of leadership I think that this district needs and the kind of conversation our city needs to start to have. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Round of applause for Thank you all for coming as well and sitting through this so patiently. I'm surprised that you were able to endure it. I probably, if I didn't have my obligations as a moderator, I probably would have taken a break or something and come back maybe.